We'll be focusing on the resumption of Parliament and the PG meeting that was held yesterday by ODM and, of course, led by Raila Amolo Odinga. We'll be looking at that. Of course, joining us this morning is none other than Dr. Harun Isaac, a governance expert. Also, Sabi Meli, a political analyst, will be joining us in a few, as well as Felix Anditi, the chairman, One Nation Alliance Movement, will also be joining us in just a few. But, Dr. let me prick your mind. Parliament is set to resume at exactly 2:30 p.m. What should we be looking out for?
Thank you very much, Abdaziz. Thank you for the invite. I think we don't expect much in the Kenyan Parliament. When you look at historically what has been happening, you'll realize that there are quite a number of bills which have been pending for many years. And we don't expect them to just wake up this time around and work on those things. However, there are quite a number of tasks that are ahead of them, including the constitution of parliamentary committees, which are currently, some of them are not, their term has expired within the Parliamentary Constitution Committee. They need to discuss issues I know which is related to the budget, the 2025-2026 policy statements that will be on their table. There will be bills that needs to be debated on. You remember the bill of the county government additional allocation 2023 that is still pending in Parliament. So there are quite a number of things that are Kenyans expecting from them. The other thing that is very crucial that needs to be understood is the fact that they are from their constituencies. And knowing that they are from their constituencies, there must be pertinent issues that they collected from the constituencies that they must table in Parliament. So we expect bills showing that, it wasn't a holiday, it was time for the constituent. And therefore, what is it that they have come up with? What is it that they have identified that is an issue for their constituents? And they must now bring us a bill into Parliament, and if necessary, then it becomes a law that can resolve those issues that they have identified. Therefore, Parliament, I know business will be as usual. We will be waiting to see them. I don't see if there is any critical issues that relates to politics that they always like, but at this point in time, we expect them to logically reason a bit. And of course, I think the issue of the budget for IEBC is something that also we expect parliamentarians to discuss, or the legislatures, so that we don't hear the budget deficit on either the by-elections or even the general elections that is being prepared for. Therefore, our expectation as Kenyans is parliamentarians to pick up their role the way it is supposed to be and come up with ideas, things that, we want a parliamentarian to say that I have been in my constituency, these are the things that are problems which are always on our table whenever we go to the constituent, and we are seeking resolution, and therefore on that note, I'll want to table this bill, and the bill should be driven ahead so that it becomes valuable to the people who have elected them.
And of course, as the National Assembly resumes its sitting, it will be the third part of the fourth session on Tuesday, the 23rd of 2025, following the end of the long recess. Now, during the recess, the members had an opportunity to conclude certain priority businesses in their respective committees. That's why you were seeing a lot of committee members, of course, canvassing a lot of business when it comes to issues that are touching on the national government and how the state departments and agencies are being run. Of course, various reports from the Auditor General and the Control of Budget was still ongoing despite the recess. Now, participate in the leadership retreat, return to their constituencies and counties to undertake their respective role, as well as take time to recharge and reconnect with their families. That is what Dr. here was referring to. Now, as the National Assembly resumes this afternoon, some of the key priorities that they will be looking at is the consideration of the nominees for appointment as High Commissioners, Ambassadors, ambassadors and consul general. You do remember that that particular interviews or vetting session was still ongoing before they went on recess, and the committee that is led by Belgut Member of Parliament Nelson Koech was carrying out that particular session. The consideration of nominees for the appointment of the registrar and assistant registrar of the political parties following the exit of Anderito into the IBC Commission right now, and of course the consideration of the nominee for appointment as the chairperson of the Kenyan National Commission on Human Rights. Now, those are some of the key issues that the members will be canvassing on the floor of the House. But another key note, before I touched on that particular note, let me get to introduce Sami Meli, who is a political analyst and he's joining us right now. But give me your overview. What do you expect from Parliament as they resume right now?
Good morning. Thank you very much. Today, the National Assembly and the Senate both resume from a recess. They had gone to take a rest and also get the views of their representative of their constituencies, so that when they come to the National Assembly and the Senate, they are able to make informed decisions. Remember, as you said, there are key appointments that have been done by the President, and they have to be considered by the National Assembly and the Senate at the same time. There are also pending bills that perhaps they had left some activity that they had not concluded before they went for recess. Remember also there is a new bill that the President introduced about the Cancer Prevention and Control Act that needs to be legislated, and cancer being a very big, a very bad thing that has happened in our country. It has become a scourge that they are told every year 44,000 new cancer-related cases are detected, and around 19,000 Kenyans die of cancer yearly, and therefore this has become a national disaster and need to be dealt with. Our representatives also have a lot on their table. Remember, there are even pending bills from previous parliament, the 12th parliament, the 11th parliament, that needs legislation, and they need to move with speed to consider this. At the same time, remember, the parliamentarians could be having new bills that they are bringing on board. Remember the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill that is there for second reading. So our parliamentarians have a lot on their in trays, and they need to execute that before the next recess.
And of course, Daktari, you were talking about some of the issues that we'll be looking at. Especially one of these particular issues when the Treasury Cabinet Secretary, that is John Badi, appeared before a committee over the e-procurement system that the MPs have been opposing. Do you think the legislators will consider and pass it?
They may actually pass it, or they may not, depending on how the pressure. These days you look at the pressure from outside. I know the President have insisted that it is time to move on. E-procurement is the way to go. And regardless of all those challenges we foresee that is likely to be experienced as we initiate the process of e-procurement, still we have a window of where learning can take place outside learning can take place while you are still initiating the process. So I tend to think, I saw a friend of mine who is a member of Parliament and one of the committees chair, saying that we may agree on everything, but it looks like now the President is being misadvised in regards to e-procurement. And his argument was that there are quite a number of gaps in terms of how to use that application. Then I was trying to tell him that as much as you may think that way, when we are using applications, when you come to digital world, there are technical people who understand the system, and these are people who can be used to facilitate the processes of using the application. And if you don't put an application into use, you will never know how the challenges will be. One of the key points that he mentioned, and I liked that, is because of the fact that we may not have a massive server and we may get in the middle of traffic, the system traffic, where now the process of uploading and approval system might get slow, which is okay, but I'm sure that can be resolved by enhancing the server systems, enhancing the internet provisions within that system. So we will want to see if, parliamentarians will going to pass this based on how they are going to debate when they initiate the process in the floor of the House. Reason being, the moment we understand their logical way of reasoning in terms of why and why they shouldn't or why they should, then we are able to understand which directions they are going. At this point in time, these are speculations because these have not been still deliberated on, and I think it is important for them to move that process forward so that Kenyans now enjoy the benefit of Kenyans can enjoy the benefit of minimal corruption and benefit of opportunity in the government services. Because why many people, or why people who have been in the group called what do I call them, the cartels, the cartels that has been dealing with the government systems are fighting the system or the e-procurement, is because now they will be exposed. One, people will get to know who has applied for what. Two, everybody's application will be treated equally because based on the merits that you have provided and the requirement. For example, as the president was mentioning, he says you will find something cost 10 shilling and another one selling, bringing a bid for 200 shilling, and then we go for the 200 shilling. The same item, someone will tell you it is 10 shilling on this side and it is 200 shilling on the other side. And our system, which is the main culprit for facilitation of corruption, go for the 200, simply because it has a chain of cartels that will be beneficiaries to that particular procurement process. And therefore, I think as a Kenyan, it is the way to go in terms of initiating the e-procurement, number one. Number two, parliamentarians must think ahead. They shouldn't be looking at short-term issues. They should look at long-term issues where, once this is initiated very well, we should be in a position to benefit the larger community in Kenya, and of course, completely minimize corruption. So I tend to think the way to go, if I must give my weight towards the same agenda and tell parliamentarians the way Kenyans will want, is we must go for the e-procurement.
And of course, Meli, this is not the first time we're speaking about that e-procurement system. Now, while he was appearing before that committee on implementation of the Constitution, the CS body stood firm on his particular government position when it comes to the implementation of the e-procurement. The president also made his stance even before going to New York, talking about how that system will cure the perennial issues we've witnessed in procurement issues, even with EACC clearly stating that most of the corruptions they have recorded within the public sector are in the procurement system. But you see, the legislators were saying we are not convinced. They argue that many institutions are ill-equipped to implement the system, and the law still allows for manual procurement.
I think we have a way in Kenya where we fight new things. They fought e-Citizen. E-Citizen is now working, and over 5,000 government applications are already online. I have interacted with this e-procurement system, and one thing stands out is that transparency will be there. As Doc has said here, the system shows you which companies have been approved and they meet the requisite standards. As of last week, 11,000 companies had already been uploaded into the e-procurement system. That tells you that there will be some transparency. I've also interacted with it, and I've seen the procurement plans of different ministries and parastatals. For example, initially, you would find one parastatal buying a pen, for example, at 1,000 shillings, and another one is buying at 10 shillings. So the e-procurement system shows uniformity. If it is a pen that is being procured in a certain parastatal, if the pen is going for 10 shillings, it will be uniform. It will help the government save on costs. You see, there are situations whereby the government spends so much, yet they get so little, and therefore there's no value for money. So let's look at the advantages of this e-procurement system. One, it will save on costs. The printing of papers, the storage of those papers, duplication of those papers. Now it will be online, whereby a soft copy will be produced. You will be able to see which company has won with how much, and who are the owners of these companies. It is easy, it is straight and forward. And when you lose, you will see the evaluation report of your company, which previously we couldn't see. You could procure, you hear that you didn't win, even when the opening of tenders was going on and you realized that you are the lowest bidder. But you realize later that somebody else, with at even double the amount you quoted, has already taken the tender. It will also help in efficiency and speed, because we are told evaluation will be done online. And you see, whenever there is less human interaction, therefore, corruption is reduced. Even if it would reduce the corruption by half, we would have done better. Remember, when we used to apply for our passports, we used to queue at Nyayo House. We could crowd there, and that crowding, half of the crowd were cartels, as Daktari has put it here. The cartels are here in between. They go between the system and the system, the service seeker. And therefore, so much is lost in between. We lose time, we lose money, we lose even accountability. Because at the end of the day, a service that would have costed less has costed even 10 times higher. We will also have an improved supplier management. All suppliers will be easily managed. Remember, the system automatically, when, for example, your business permit expires, you leave the front row and go back to the back end, whereby you will need now to upload it to be moved again. Previously, you would find people whose business permits are fake. The KRA PIN is the KRA tax compliance certificate is fake. Now the system also confirms with KRA, because it's linked with KRA. When you put your BRS number, for your company number from BRS confirms that you are an existing company. And you'll even be able to see how many tenders has this company won. So it will help those people, for example, who have been bidding and losing. Now they can even bid and win. I can bid in Mombasa while in Nairobi. I can bid in Turkana while in Nairobi. And I can bid from Kibish while in Vanga. So the tenderers or the business people, even the manufacturers, will be able to compete with you. As you bid, because if the manufacturer says, for example, this bottle of water is 20 shillings, and they have the capacity to supply, we will save so much. And you realize that the budget we are reading of, let's say, 4.3 trillion, that budget, even there will be surplus at the end of this financial year, because it will not be fully utilized. Since we have gotten value for money. So this is the way to go. It will reduce those backdoor corruption cases where you go see procurement officers backdoor, because this system is managed at a different level, at the treasury. And therefore, not everybody will manage to get to the treasury. Not everybody managed to get to IFMIS when IFMIS was there. So any procurement that was done in IFMIS was done rightly, but those which were done underground, and uploaded later were the ones that were glaring, and that is why you find even there are so many pending bills. So the president, just like Dr. Fred Matiang'i when he forced us to go digital from analog, I think it's high time we move from the analog way of doing things and go the digital way.
Okay,
just
as you respond let me just pose this question to you, because you see, at the end of the day, they are parliamentarians. It's within their purview to even halt this particular exercise if they wish so to do. But in terms of rushing this particular exercise, that was one of the issues that was being raised in that particular committee. Then if that is the case, the MPs were demanding clarity on whether the Treasury will comply with the directive issued by that particular house. So should Treasury heed the words of the members of Parliament so that that particular system can be, of course, reinforced in Parliament?
Yeah, Abdulaziz, I just wanted to add one point first. My colleague has mentioned, you know, there are a number of ministries who have not yet complied with the system, and they have not actually made any effort in even applying for the utilization of the system. And one thing that the government always enjoy is the resources allocated for Q1, particularly the development ones. If you have not utilized them or you have not committed them, then it's a saving for the government. And therefore, we already know we will have a chunk of money that is in the budget that has not been utilized during Q1. That will be a savings for the government. And therefore, for those who think that the government will lose anything for delaying or failing to comply, means the government will going to have savings. And these savings will going to offset our debts, which we are already gambling with. When it comes to the issue of rushing the system and parliamentarians having mandates to bring that to a stop, I think our parliamentarians never logically reason in the way they are expected to reason, meaning they never look into the interest of the common citizen of this country. They look at the interest of the cartels they work with. And you remember sometimes back when we were talking about SHA, I told you the biggest challenge is the cartel plus senior government officials as well as political leaders who are linked to these cartels. And still you will realize that the people who are sponsoring for parliamentarians to reject this process are the same cartels who think that they have not yet collected enough, particularly the people in the counties. I'm not excluding the people in the national government, but when you see some of the things that the people in the counties are doing, then this will be a very big problem for them to overcome the current challenges that we foresee. And I know they will going to be curtailed if they convert to the e-procurement. And therefore, we know the parliamentarians have the powers to stop the Treasury. But Treasury, and let me ask you one thing. You remember, it's almost 5-10 years that this e-procurement was piloted in some few counties. And is 10 years not enough? Or are we trying to say that indeed we couldn't facilitate the process of adjusting whatever errors is likely to be encountered in the process? No. The issue is even those pilotings were rejected. So Kenyans will want to reject anything that will interfere with the corruption menace, and they will always want to support where they get money. So I don't think if Parliament will want to take that direction, and if they do so, of course we will ask our Gen Zs to go into the street until e-procurement is effected, because one of the mandate of
are you not inciting the Gen Zs?
No, it is okay to incite them because this is something of beneficial to all Kenyans. It is not actually. Gen Zs will get even employment if this money that they are looting. You remember retired President Uhuru said we are losing over 2-point-something billion every day. So if that money is secured, what happens? We are likely to create employment. We are likely to create an opportunity for our young people. And therefore, if parliamentarians think that the interest of the interest of common good is not their interest, then they will not be also carrying any interest of anybody. So they should go for the interest of common good, and they should also tell people that we are doing this because of ABCD. If challenges occur, there's always a way to resolve it. And technology never disappoint you if you are ready for it. The people who are not ready for this technology are the ones who are not ready for it. You remember sometimes back we were doing a PowerPoint presentation. Someone is required to do a PowerPoint presentation. When he comes to the podium, he tries to touch things because he was not prepared for the PowerPoint. He never wanted to impress that technology. So he says his technology has failed. He corrupts the things as he has written so that he's allowed to do manually. So these are human nature, where when new things occur, they will always go into resistance. And I tend to think Treasury must insist that this e-procurement process must take off. And if it doesn't take off this year, we don't need to spend any development money this year. We save and pay our debts for this 2025-2026 development fund. Other than projects which are already ongoing that we pay, the rest of the development fund should be directed towards paying our debts so that we offset burdens that are already becoming very heavy for Kenyans. I know generations to come will keep on paying the debts we have collected today, and we are not looking forward to how best we can remove those debts out of the system so that we reduce burden for our generations to come. So if you ask me, then if the system is a problem, let's learn the system this year. We don't do any development project, because development projects are not emergency. And we are already having ongoing projects which are emergency. So 2020, which are not emergency as well. We continue paying those projects which are old, that is ongoing. But any other new development project, until the system is effectively embraced and efficiently utilized, those who are saying they cannot use it, let them wait. 2025, 2026 development budgets go to repaying our debts.
And of course, as you also respond, Meli, but there is another issue that the parliamentarians will be looking at. You do remember the issue of the privatization of the Kenya Pipeline Company. Of course, before the members of parliament went on recess, it's a matter that came up on the floor of the House, and of course they will discuss it as they resume today and in the weeks to come. But in terms of that particular privatization, you've seen even the Energy Cabinet Secretary, that is Opiyo Wandayi, who was a former ODM member, pushing for that particular privatization. And interestingly, yesterday, the former Prime Minister Raila Amolo Odinga also expressed his support for the state's decision to privatize the non-profitable state corporation, despite even going to court in 2023 to stop the government from doing the same. So in terms of the privatization of the Kenya Pipeline Companies, MPs have also raised their concerns about it. They're saying this is an institution that is making profit. Why should we sell it?
Now, the institution could be making profit, but not enough profit. Remember the privatization of Telecom Kenya, the privatization of KCB, the privatization of other government parastatals have made them even more effective. Remember, a few people will lose jobs after when the privatization is done, but eventually, when the company peaks, it will be able to make profit. Remember, even privatization does not mean the government of Kenya loses all the shares. The government owns quite a huge chunk of shares in Safaricom. And how many jobs have Safaricom created since the privatization of Telecom Kenya? It has made quite a number of jobs. And therefore, if we have to create jobs, if we have to move this country forward, some of these white elephants, some of these burdening parastatals that keeps sucking in government money and revenue that we collect instead of giving us profit should be privatized. If you go to some countries, for example, the Sabina Gökçen International Airport in Istanbul used to belong to the government, but when it was privatized, it is the most efficient airport in Istanbul. And therefore, if it takes privatization to make these parastatals more efficient, more effective, and even create more jobs, we have to go that way. Remember, sometimes it takes too long, for example, for a punctured pipeline to be repaired. You remember, is it Kwale or where there was a broken pipeline and it destroyed the environment around that place. Even the MPs still go there 10 years, 20 years down the line to see it. If this was a private company, the reaction rate on repairs, on maintenance, on service delivery would be higher. The private sector is leading in this country. And it's leading by far by making sure that every government, every employee that is there is doing their job. But if you look at some people working in government, right now there's somebody who has not arrived in the office and he's not doing anything official outside the office. It's because there's very little to do. So if this company was private, I'm sure there would be even new ways of doing things. KBC would have new ways of doing things and modern ways. We could even have the reduction of the fuel cost because, you see, the government will not have a lot of control. It will go with the market, how the market goes. And therefore, we would even buy shares in it. You see, it might end up even being securitized and Kenyans own part of that company. You see, so people, when they hear of privatization, they think of a private investor coming from outside and taking everything. As Prime Minister Raila Odinga said it yesterday, KBC will still be here. If it is privatized, it will not go anywhere. It will be working here, and perhaps it will create more opportunities for us than it has recently. Therefore, we shouldn't be fighting things. Look at the other day, the refurbishment of KICC. It took 3 billion, and yet KICC brings to the country less than 300 million a year. Is it worth it? Or should we have monuments just for looking, for seeing? If we were to privatize KICC, perhaps there will be private modern offices in KICC. There will be conference activities from all over
but that
the
is
world.
happening. The conferences are
but
happening.
they are not enough because, you see, the civil servants are the ones running it. If it was a private sector, they would even go and woo people who wanted to take a conference elsewhere and bring it here. Once it is done here, you see, there are times of the year when KICC is just idle. You see? So, but have you seen private sector being idle even at any point? If the private sector is always active, even when things are tough, even when economy is tough, the private sector always thinks of a way of maneuvering these hard times. But if the public sector keeps a certain norm whereby they just want to be comfortable. You see, even political appointees, somebody who is not qualified, has never learned anything about petroleum, has never learned anything about marketing, being put in charge of such an organization. It doesn't make sense. But if you look at the private sector, they put qualified people.
Okay. And of course, Daktari, as you respond to the same, some of the arguments that are being made, given that the Kenya pipeline will be privatized if the members of parliament will back that particular decision, is that they were arguing that this will have a ripple effect on the cost of petroleum itself, products in the country. Now, they're arguing that the consumers and factories will be at the mercy of the persons who acquired the corporation, as they will control how much shall be charged for storage, among other things. So the fear here is we're creating another monopoly within the sector.
That could be possible, that monopoly issue might arise. But you see, even if it was privatized, why we have government regulations is because they regulate things that are of the interest of the citizen of the country. And therefore, at any one time, the government will not lose the regulatory power, regardless of whether an institution is privatized or that institution remains within the public sector. But we have one problem. And this has been a biggest problem in Kenya from the time Kenyans started having issues related, or rather Kenyans being engaged on issues related to governance. The biggest challenge we have is fear of the unknown. We fear things that we actually don't know. And later, you realize that one will say, this was actually the best option. So privatization, as he has put it very clearly, does not necessarily translate to being taken away by a private entity. It could be Kenyans who are running that private entity, and we Kenyans will go into benefit. But I think one thing that Kenyans don't understand, and it's important to understand, is that why our fuels are very expensive is because of the shares that the government picks. Out of 180, almost 90 goes to the government. So it is not that even the person who has taken that component of the privatization aspect of the company, or the people who take over in the aspect of privatization, will going to add anything much. If the government reduce their demand, they can also dictate to the private entities that they should also lower it down. Another, not only Kenya Pipeline Corporation, another entity that needs to be privatized because of monopoly and because of a lot of leakage in the usage of the resources coming from that particular aspect is Kenya Power. And if Kenya Power is privatized and everybody is allowed to buy from the national grid to provide electricity, you know what? A lot of people will make money, government will make money, leakages that we are seeing in Kenya Power will going to end, but because that's a cash cow, people do not want to talk about it. So generally, if one will want things to work very well in this country, they must disown their individual interests or what we call certain class of people within the country, their interests, the people who are called the top cream, their interests, because generally they are the ones protecting in order for them not to drain or stop the leakage of what they have been flowing from those entities. And therefore, Raila has said it, one good thing that I liked from him yesterday is that we are battling with debts. Let's sell off all these things, reduce our debts to less than a trillion, or even 500 to a billion, 500 billion, or billions, than having 14 trillion. And if you sell all these entities, and you channel that money, not usage for other things, to pay debts, and we start now a new chapter of how to secure resources for our development, then I don't think if it will be a big challenge. So the challenge here is we are fighting people whose interests are continuity of malpractices, and those who wants to have this malpractice to stop will always have resistance. And those are in the government, they are in the public, and they are in the parliament.
And of course, let me get to introduce our another guest, that is Felix Owori, the chairman of One Nation Alliance Movement. Felix, karibu sana.
Thank you so much.
Of course, we're canvassing the issues that are before the House. They are resuming today. Gentlemen, I want to shift gears, of course, to another particular issue that has been very contentious, not only within the corridors of the Augusta House, but outside it. When it comes to the implementation of the National Government Constituency Development Fund, you all know that it was just a few days ago where the High Court stopped Parliament from forwarding the contested Constitution Amendment Bill for ascension, pending the determination of a petition filed by Katiba Institute. And in terms of looking at how the members of Parliament will react to it this afternoon, because the reason why they were doing it is to ensure that they reinforce the legal decisions that were made within the courts that declared even the NGCDF itself unconstitutional. Do you think this members of Parliament will still push it for ascension despite even a court order?
Thank you so much. I'm just afraid that we are dealing with a very selfish house, a very disorganized house, a house that has no good interest for the country, and that is not a priority. Amendment of the Constitution altogether is not a priority for our nation right now, because this Constitution has not been fully implemented. Even though they raised it so that they can find parts that favor them, which are not in the Constitution. And just to echo what one of our leaders said, that it is a referendum moment. And that is why they are pushing these things. But as one Wananchi, as a chairperson of One Nation Alliance, which brings together all citizens for a better and a greater nation, Kenya is not at a constitutional moment. It is an economic moment. If we could channel all our energies, all our efforts to better our economy. Because this one they're doing for themselves, whether they're going to pass it or not, whether they're going to ratify it or not, despite even the suspension by the courts, by the judiciary. They're just trying to manage so that wananchi that get to absorb it slowly by slowly. But the reality check is this: they are detached, they are running away, they are running left, and the Kenyans are right. No one is putting people together. And that is why it is appeal for Kenyans of goodwill, even in shows like this, that we're able to bring out the real issues that affect this country. Like, for example, what my brother mentioned, the public-private partnership. I know it has worked in some countries, but sometimes that's a concept of lazy leadership. Leadership that is not willing to soil their hands to ensure that public entities, agencies, corporations work and make profit for the interest of the country. Because you cannot tell me the private institutions are profitable and our government institutions keep on making losses. What does that tell us? That the leadership that we have, and unfortunately, we have leadership that has been leading this country for decades, for more than decades. Any working, profit-making corporation, we always have changes in leadership. We always have changes in management, whichever level, to avoid that redundancy. So there are no new ideas. There is no interest of the wananchi just changing the constitution to favor them, and the Kenyans keep suffering. When I was coming here, I got a lot of calls and messages saying that, please, on that table, whether they ask or not, insist that we're not looking for a referendum, for a constitutional change, whether the Senate ratifies or not, because those ones are their puppets. But we want them to hear us. And I don't know what wananchi are able to do if they won't be heard. But this is a time for wananchi to speak out and make sure that their priorities are considered. And to our leadership, changing a constitution is never a priority, not at all. When we have an education sector which is crumbling, we have a health center. Just yesterday, the private institutions, hospitals, they withdrew. You know, they need to be listened to because there are Kenyans who get their medical health care through them. That means more lives are going to be lost. And we have issues at hand. What's happening in Mombasa right now? So I don't know, but we just need to be so different and make Kenya great and better.
Okay, because that same argument you're making, it's something that not only even pundits, chairmen of various parties and other institutions have been talking about. As you respond mainly to the issue of NGCDF and following this particular court order, there is that call that has been made not only by leaders, by a section of Kenyans in terms of a referendum moment, implementing such things like the NGCDF, even the Senate Oversight Fund, the Affirmative Action Fund. What are our leaders pushing us to? Are we likely to see a referendum moment in this country?
As my friend here, we don't need to change the constitution to implement some of these things. The government has representatives to the grassroots. Remember, if they want the funds or the revenue or whatever reach the lowest class of people, they have administrative officers who can run with it. We shouldn't have politicians having their cake and keeping it and eating it at the same time. If you see a member of parliament insisting on CDF, then they have a hand in it, because this is where they have been funding their lifestyles. This is where they have been funding their economy on their own, and at the expense of a local mwananchi down there. Imagine we have every elective position having a bursary. Why can they coalesce this all together into one and send this money to the Ministry of Education? Because I was asking myself, why should the government give money to people so that they pay the government? Why? Is it attracting VAT? Is bursary attracting VAT? If it is not attracting VAT, pay directly to the schools. Pay directly to the needy ones. The teachers in the classrooms know the needy children. The head teachers know the children who need help. and therefore they can be identified at the smallest unit. And therefore, if we don't become practical in what we are doing, why must members of parliament insist that they want that 187 million yearly to handle under their NGCDF, so that when they go back to the electorate, they tell them, you see, I did that, and I did that. And they don't tell Mwananchi that the NGCDF board is independent. The committee is independent of the member of parliament. But it is independent in quote, because the member of parliament directs his puppets behind the scenes. And therefore, what he wants is done. Whoever they want to win the tender. And that brings back again to the e-procurement, because there was a directive that all government ministries, all government parastatals, county governments, member of parliament, and any other administrative unit go to e-procurement. And that is why the president said, if you don't want to work with e-procurement, look for a job elsewhere. Because we want transparency. We want the money we are had our hard-earned money that is taxed, and we are bitter. Like there was a post I put online the other day, and employed Kenyans attacked me seriously because of their 2.75% of the housing levy. And you see, they feel the pain. If this pain would come with a gain, then the government will have an easy ride in 2027, asking for re-election. But if this pain comes with a pain, then it will be very difficult for them. And that is why the members of parliament should consider their role as legislative, representative, and oversight. These are the job where they want to also have put their hands in the cookie jar. They shouldn't be encouraged. If I were a member of parliament, for example, and I know my job is just representation, in fact, it will be cheaper for me to campaign. It will be cheaper for me to convince Kenyans, because I just need a sweet tongue to tell them, I'm going to represent you. But if it comes with the money factor, Kenyans know that you are coming to control around 5 billion in your five-year term. That means they will always want something from your pocket.
And of course, Daktari, that argument that Meli is making, members of parliament have been arguing that they do not control the funds directly. There is a board in place because there is an NGCDF, National CDF board that has been appointed to their various constituencies. All their work is to do is just to oversight that fund.
Abdas is, you know, when you live in Kenya, you live in wonders. You know, and we should be put as in the Guinness Book of Record, because sometimes you wonder why a member of parliament whose role is defined very well in the constitution will demand for something else. Now, I have been always echoing that there is no need for you to manage any resources if you are doing an oversight role, because you cannot oversight yourself. Even if the CDF is managed by an independent board. This has never been practical, because Kenyans in independent institutions have never been independent. And that, for fact, Kenyans have experienced, even in the major institutions that are expected to be very much independent, like EACC, they have never been independent. And therefore, for you to tell Kenyans that the board that manages CDF is independent, and therefore there is no hand in it as a member of parliament, you are lying to people. And therefore, Kenyans are fooled by people who are liars. And therefore, I tend to think Kenyans should understand their role. And we are governed by the laws of this land. We don't bring our own opinion. The laws of this land are interpreted in Supreme Court. Supreme Court clearly stated that CDF is unlawful, it's unconstitutional, and therefore we will have just dropped it there and we don't do anything else. We move on to something beneficial. Number two, you know, sometimes, that's why I'm telling you, in Kenya you will find a lot of wonders, is someone is saying we will increase the term of leadership to 7 years so that they're able to deliver. What does a leadership role deliver, basically? Leadership do not implement anything. They set policies. Policies do not require for you to implement them. Policies are implemented by the policy implementers, the institutions that have been set within that country. And therefore, when did our politicians become service delivery entity? And that is what we are trying to see. Someone wants to do a referendum. My brother has mentioned it very well. Kenyans do not need a referendum because we have given you an opportunity for 5 years. That 5 years, you are supposed to make sure that you have put policies in place that can be right on. Policies never end. For example, let me tell you one thing. The late Kibaki left a blueprint of clear policy, what is called the master plan of this country, development plan for this country. And all those plans that he has put in place, because they were within the policy and the policies were guiding those plans, they were implemented. SGR was one of it. Expressway was one of it. Uhuru did not play any role. The road from Thika, Kiambu, Thika to Nyeri was his master plan. So government operate like that. It is not necessary for you to be there for policy that you have shaped to be implemented. So what we are asking for is that policymakers must give us good policies so that those who are tasked to implement those policies have an opportunity to do the same thing. There is no legacy that comes with an development that did not backed by any policy. Sorry. And therefore, what we are trying to say is that you don't need a lot of time to implement any policy. The policies, leave it for those who will be there. You make sure that your 10 years or 5 years that you are in office, you come up with a serious policy that will going to lead this Kenya to the right direction. Similarly to that one that has been done by the late Kibaki. I don't know if there are any policies that Uhuru has left for us that we are implementing, because they didn't come out very clearly. You know.
What about the Big Four agenda?
The Big Four agendas, where are they? Where are they? Those vehicles they bought for the health facilities and the equipment, do you know where they are? No. We have just learned that equipments that were procured in Afia House were not there actually. The equipments were never there. And they were distributed in those facilities in the counties. And those facilities in the counties, only few of them received pieces of them, not even all, in any of the equipments that are required. So what we are trying to say is that let parliamentarians do their job. Forget about managing resources. Let people who are mandated to manage resources, manage these resources. They have been given two things. They are working hand in hand with the Auditor General. Meaning, they do the oversight. As soon as the Auditor General flags malpractices, the Member of Parliament is supposed, in their respective committees, to do their oversight role to make sure that those people who are required to be taken to court, they are taken to court. Those people who are supposed to be having integrity issues are supposed to be charged based on that, and they leave offices. But if everybody is fighting for what he will get, then of course the people who are implementers becomes a tool for these policy makers, because they have more powerful authority in terms of how they can speak louder than the implementer. So the implementer fears, because they sometimes chase them out of the offices. I know there are quite a number of Kenyans who have been terminated from their services because of political influence. Not that because they have done something bad. Most likely they said no to certain demand that was not appropriate. And therefore, what we are trying to say is that at any one time, we will never approve a Member of Parliament fighting for a CDF in Parliament. They should stop that, and they should stop those things that don't make sense to Kenyans. They should do their job.
But Felix, in just 1 minute before we take a short commercial break, many Kenyans are saying that the NGCDF is working for them. There are classrooms, there are police stations. So if Kenyans are saying it is there and they can see the fruits of NGCDF, where is the problem?
Thank you. Actually, that's a bit laughable because NGCDF is a good idea, but the motive of it is not right. Because as much as it's working for them, it's a low-lying fruit, because that Kenyan can go get some bursary there, can get some support there. But to start with, NGCDF, the managers of this NGCDF, they spend most of their time in Nairobi, not even in their constituencies. That is the respective members of parliaments. So that tells you even the management of them is not very right. NGCDF, it's like an incentive to the wananchi that, allow me to use these words and not to be misquoted. In Kenya and in our government, we have leaders that are working perfectly well and are so committed. Unfortunately, there are those that are really distracting and are really focused that other interests are brought in. So these who are not focused on a good Kenya, of course, that is why we find corruption and massive corruption. As they eat, they want to tell wananchi that you also will give you something so that you don't make a lot of noise. As we are doing our corruption up here, tumwaletea CDF, mnaweza pata basari, na tunaweza toa. So this is a strategy of sensationalizing Kenyans, you know, emotional weeping, so that Kenyans can be part of a system which is not perfect. You know, as much as it is okay, because Kenyans don't have alternatives. Whatever that works, they will embrace. Whatever, if you're hungry, even if you're given one banana, you say thank you. But if you're full, you would rather take fruits than take another ugali. So the system has perfectly planned that to bring in Kenyans so that they feel part of a system, which again is failing them. Because look at it right now. The state of the nation. When you look at the per student, that capitation in our schools, it is so minimal, cannot even run those institutions. If we could empower that, it's only this year that at least we saw budget of education rising.
To over 700 billion.
We could empower our ministries, for example, the Ministry of Education, to work so well, so that no child should not be taken back home because of lack of school fees. And McHugh, because Kenyans are paying tax, why should we even have them paying for education? Basic services, primary education, secondary education, perhaps even tertiary, but I'm limiting myself to primary education. Why should even have them to pay health? So why this subject was brought right now at this moment? Because they're looking for a way of bringing Kenyans to be part of their plan of changing the constitution. Because they know Kenyans are engaged with the CDF. Kenyans are going to come and give opinions.
They already gave?
They already gave.
Yes, yes.
And when they feel that NGCDF is going to be affected, Kenyans are going to come out. So it is a way of bringing Kenyans to be part of a process which is not focused on them. And I wish we could focus on the economic recovery and economic development. And even some of our good agendas, like, for example, the Big Four and the economic plan that Kibaki left, that has been put under the carpet, to see Kenya see the light of day and Africa get somewhere.
Okay. And of course, gentlemen, I want to leave that particular topic because I'm being informed that we've been added at least 9 more minutes. I want to prick your mind on another issue, but that particular issue of NGCDF, we'll wait to see what will happen, given that Justice Lawrence Mugambi added that the case raised substantial questions of the law that should be addressed by a bench of more than one judge. And of course, he forwarded that particular file to the Chief Justice Martha Koome for the appointment of an even number of judges to determine that particular case. As and when the Chief Justice will be appointing that particular bench, we'll be informing you. But right now, I want to prick the minds of my guests when it comes to the meeting that happened yesterday here in the capital, where the Orange Democratic Movement leader, that is Raila Amolo Odinga, issued a stern warning to dissenting voices within the Orange movement, urging them to resist the allure of public approval at the expense of party discipline, addressing the minority parliamentary group meeting ahead of the resumption of the House today. Odinga emphasized ODM's cooperation with the Kenya Kwanza administration is not a matter of political convenience, but a demonstration of responsible leadership. Let me start with you, Sammy. We're talking about a PG meeting where the ODM leader, Raila Amolo Odinga, decided to tell the members of parliament that we need to work with the Kenya Kwanza government, especially those who are opposing the broad-based arrangement between the ODM leader Raila Amolo Odinga and President William Ruto. Do you think they will listen?
I think if there is a more democratic party, it's ODM, because you can see even the dissenting voices are still welcome. They have grown over time. The last time Margaret Langat was kicked out, I think that was the last time we saw chaos in that party. But the party has become a little bit of a democratic party, and the leader of that party, being Raila Amolo Odinga, yesterday spoke like a statesman. And he said that they have no agreement with Kenya Kwanza on on election of 2027. Actually, that is true. They don't have such an agreement. They had a 10-point agenda that they are implementing. If you go to the House of Congress in the UK, even in the US, sometimes you find even opposition parties joining government to push some agenda together that is for the good of the country. If there is an agenda that they are pushing that is for the good of Kenya, it is welcome. And I've always said, when you welcome Raila Odinga into your house, please start removing your iron sheets, because anytime he can stand. And once he stands, he's an elephant. You will not have a house anymore. So those were signs of Raila Odinga standing up. And therefore, the Kenya Kwanza coalition should be very careful on how they handle ODM from this time going forward. But advising, I saw it was not a warning per se, it was advising the likes of Sifuna to tone down on some of these because he also knows that he has to contain the young men in the party. Remember, they had formed a certain wing that was already marketing themselves in Western and some parts of this country. But looking at Raila Odinga, the way he spoke yesterday, he has come of age. He has become a statesman that can advise a country. Remember, when he joined politics, he was a very violent young man. And when you see him toned down, and they say when you see when you hear the alligator telling you that the crocodile is sick, please believe it. And therefore, Raila Odinga came out yesterday and advised his members of parliament. Perhaps he was bringing his house in order. Remember, we have 2 more years to go, and it will be very expensive for them to start chaos at this moment. And you heard Junet Mohammed saying Matusi wamewekea 2026 in December, so it will be too early. Yes.
But Daktari, the main question that Raila Amolo Odinga even posed to the members of parliament who are attending that particular PG meeting, who told you that will not field a candidate in 2027?
Yeah, I think that is a good question, and that is true, because we did not see in any of his agreement him saying that we will not going to or filling any candidate position for presidency, or we will be having an alliance with Kenya Kwanza. He has never talked about that, and of course his team also never talked about that. But I think in politics, you look at the signs. Looks like Baba, strategically, he's thinking differently now. He does not want to throw stones or put sufrias on his head this time around for 2027. And most likely, people are interpreting what they are seeing. You know, as a psychologist, we don't look at things from what people say in their mouth. We look at the unspoken part of your communication. And generally, when you look at it very keenly, it means there is a coalition which is coming up. And if a coalition is coming up with a sitting president, then definitely that coalition will not resit, or a sitting president will never give out his position. Meaning then, by any means, you will not going to have a competitor for that particular coalition, other than the sitting president that is running. So he was playing with the psychology of his team that time is not yet. And even if time is not yet, we have not still communicated, and we are yet to communicate when that time comes. Meaning, he has never confirmed that he will have a candidature for 2027 in his party,
Okay.
or neither did he confirm that he will be supporting and joining Kenya Kwanza.
Okay.
Therefore, meaning he has left an open space,
Okay.
but he was trying to whip, actually, that was a whip actually, telling them that you guys, this party belongs to me. I'm the one who runs the shot. So you guys hold your horse and wait. Basically, that is the language he was using in a very diplomatic way, the way my brother here says that he has indeed spoken as a statesman.
Okay.
He has been a statesman for many years.
Okay, Daktari,
The
I will
fact
have to
that
cut
he
you short.
supports people.
Thank
you.
Because we're running out of time, I need to give Felix at least an opportunity to respond to this. But Felix, as you respond quickly in just a few minutes, we're also talking about the Secretary General of the party himself, Edwin Sifuna. He was not present in that meeting.
Wow, thank you so much. I think the politics of this country is so entertaining. You can't be bored. And that was a PG meeting, which is part of any political party. But again, not confining myself to that PG, what we have seen is our leaders trying to manage change. Kenya is so ripe for change. We've seen a lot of young leaders coming out,
Yes.
ready for change. And most of those members of parliament, believe it or not, they know very well they're not going back in 2027. That's why some of them have been trying to find ways on their own, trying other alliances, trying different things, including other movements, and they're allowed to do that. Do you remember when we had the Gen Z protest the other time? Gen Z were ready to wipe all of them out. But now people came to manage this change. And so what we saw, like our brother said, it was a whip. Actually, it was. Because they are among the members of parliament, there are those that are so alert and so sober and mean well for this country and want a better nation.
Okay.
But they cannot do it from the platforms where they are, from some parties where they are.
Okay.
Why? Because parties belongs to people. And parties are sometimes coiled under interests of people. So these members of parliaments, they know very well their fate is not there.
Okay.
So every time they're trying to wake up, every time they're trying to forge ahead, because some whip, and I don't know, maybe that's why the Secretary General wasn't there, but I would not speak for him.
Yes.
So this, there's a
Finally?
there's a Kenyan who put it this way, in not very soft words, that when the government came in, hustlers came in. Hustlers were part of the government.
Okay.
Many citizens were part of the government and were very hopeful. And that's why some feel a bit disappointed.
Okay.
But along the way, hustlers were kicked out. The dynasties came in.
Okay.
So the dynasties are inside, running the show. Kenyans are outside.
Okay.
They're still trying to find ways that they're able to manage Kenyans outside. And Kenyans outside are also struggling to find a way for themselves. So it's still a quagmire.
Okay.
Yes.
Finally. I don't want us to be cut off of air, but thank you so much. That is Felix Owuor, the chairman, One Nation Alliance Movement. Thank you for making time for us today. Sami Meli, a political analyst. As always, a pleasure having you, Sami. And of course, Dr. Harun Isaac, who is also a governance expert. Thank you, gentlemen, for making time for us on News Check.